What did it do not apply? What are you talking about? Well, welcome back to yet another episode of the Kasi Talks. We're back again with Oba Paul and Jabulo Villagazi. If you did watch our last episode, you will know that we were talking about the concept of otherism that is covered in his upcoming book, Power in a Slave's Mind. We made an example of a nation or a group of people that are othered in South Africa, which are the colored people. And Babu Jabulo made many examples as to how and why are they othered. But then today we are going to focus more on individuals in the history of South Africa that have been othered, and maybe that will sort of cast a light into their current behavior. But Paul Jabulo Villa, thanks again for joining us today.
Yes, I think you're spot on. In the book itself, I'm highlighting the areas of othering people,
Okay.
like the othering or the feeling of being othered, because we don't know the workings of the movement that I'll allude to. But there is a feeling by former President Jacob Zuma that he has been othered within the movement. And being othered, that question kind of escapes the kind of people that he describes as clever blacks, including the popular media. They steer clear of this aspect of this man feeling that he was othered by his movement. And but he's very explicit about it. And I hold no candle for him. I have no dog in this war. But he said he and Harry Gwala did a lot for ANC. And you and I can attest to that. This man was the chief of intelligence in exile, receiving deadly dangerous reports, and perhaps also doing deadly dangerous things, engineering them or being somewhere in the forefront, which means working harder, because if they were doing that for their own good, they would always justify it. And so we find that he feels that people in this country were suddenly made millionaires by the ANC. It's like abracadabra. Cyril Ramaphosa is a billionaire now. Turkey Sokhwal is a billionaire. And he says, what about us? What about Harry Gwala and us?
Because you also played a role in liberating the country.
That's right. Are we regarded as some hinterland foot soldiers not to be considered when Umnoto is being organized? Because, the country's Umnoto. And if Cyril and Tokyo and others are playing that role, why not us? Because, Thabo Mbeki perhaps would not have asked such a question for himself.
Right.
But this man feels like I was an MEC of economics in KwaZulu-Natal that was out in the hinterland, Now I'm being brought here to be deputy president, and in no time I'm being kicked out, which means I have not gotten anything out of the struggle. You remember some nigger called Smasungo Nyama said, we didn't struggle to be poor. You understand? That could have been that mentality.
So he could have felt like that also.
Yes, that we didn't struggle to be poor. Now that we are here at home and Umnoto is here, like Mutsuku Petku said, it is time for all of us to eat. And then he could have organized, and I'm emphasizing the point that he feels he was othered. So when you call him a looter, and looter per se, and you paint him exclusively like a looter, missing this point that this man feels he was othered, that you had no business of impoverishing him. Also knowing that he had a lifestyle as well, you know, a lifestyle whereby he had a bigger crop. By bigger crop, I mean bigger family. You know, more spouses, children, stuff like that, and you live in the doldrums of poverty. That's why he roped in people like Shabi Sheikh and so on to help him out. The man is not read in letters and in numbers, you know, because he has more outside of Western classroom education. But he knew how the economy works.
I'm glad that now you're coming into the issue of education and Western education per se. I will, if one remembers very well, Jacob Zuma was never included in the succession list of the ANC. He was never part of that. The people that were listed are the likes of Thabo Mbeki and so on and so forth. But he, as you have alluded earlier, that he was there in the liberation struggle. He was there in the trenches of MKVMA, MKV, in the ANC. But now, when there is a succession, he's not included there. He fought and won in Polygamy, and he was supported mostly by the trade unions
and others, and who felt they were othered also, that they were not having their fingers in the pot, in the cookie jar. You know what I mean? So, and not even in the cookie jar, they were not even having crumbs from the table. You understand what I mean? They would be dejected once they leave office, once, you know, deployed.
So he fought his way.
Or not deployed.
He fought his way and won.
Yes.
He fought and won, but the problem of being othered was still there inside the party. And people plotted to remove him. But now the problem is he was not only othered by his fellow comrades, he was also othered by society, also othered by people whom I would call economic masterminds. So my question to you, what is the cause of this otherism? Why are they othering him?
You know, it comes to mind one intellectual, American intellectual academic, Alice Walker, came to the country some time back. And the first thing, he condemned this country for having a president that is polygamous. That was Alice, it's not Alice's business who has how many wives. Because that situation of wives it makes economic sense to show us. It's an African way of arranging your own home, shared economics and so on, and many children. It works in the long run. When you have one child or two, and Msholozi has 25, he sees as better wealth for the future, even for the future, putting together almost a new clan. You understand what I mean? I'm not his apologist, but I'm just putting facts there. I reacted. I smashed Alice Walker for saying that, because those people who elected him at Polokwane knew that he had many wives and they had no qualm about it. You know what I mean? So why come out of the diaspora, the furthest part of the diaspora, and come and tell us and all that? These clever blacks are influenced by that kind of thought, that kind of thought patterns, that
Western
kind of media, Western. And they don't forgive Msholozi for not having Western education. They don't forgive him. Some of them, perhaps, who call him scoundrel like Lekota, perhaps they begrudge him because they're university students and or graduates of kind. But he's so smart, he knows everything. You understand what I mean? And you get easily begrudged. Who's this old man? They hold him to the fact that he could not mention the digits in a proper form of a certain number and so on, you know. And so what I mean is that they always look for something to say he's not good enough, and othering people makes them dangerous. You know, he became dangerous because he began to put a kind of what you would call a cabal around himself, and maybe cabal of the wounded, and say, guys, it's our time now. And they went to Polokwane there. The trade union might have had their own agenda. And also, by the way, the trade unions were at war with Thabo Mbeki. So he was winning all the way. And so being othered becomes dangerous in that sense, that today you have the Zondo Commission and so on. And it won't go to that depth as to what disgruntled you, Dr. Zuma. I'm not talking about Dr. Dlamini Zuma. This one also by his titles, Dr. Reverend, and so what caused you, a trauma in your politics? Is there anything like that? I don't know whether that will be waffling, but it would be useful for the country to know that this fellow felt traumatized in many ways.
So I remember an instance in our history. As South Africans, I think this took place in the Eastern Cape when the missionaries came into that part of South Africa. It is said that there became a division between those who went to missionary schools and missionary churches and those who kept their African customs. Somehow those who kept their African customs, they were seen as barbaric.
They were called Amakaba. Because they were Kaba with the soil, the red soil and so on. And you know what? We must thank this country for Amakaba more than anything else. Because Africanism, what is called Africanism, I will deal with the word Africa sometime. I'm still calling it Africanism for the want of a better way, you know what I mean? Not Al-Kabulian or stuff like that, but not even African. But what I'm trying to say is that they preserved the cultures, those are my terms. They preserved the true African ethos by not going into these schools. Even Mandela, when he came out of prison, he had to make sure that some of those courses go back to Western schools and so on, if they need Western education.
So it seems like Zuma now is suffering the same fate. To say you did not go to school, you did not go to the brainwashing camp. Therefore, we are better than you. So it is brother fighting brother, but they do not see eye to eye
over master's agenda. You understand what I mean? Because he's sprung out of incomes and KwaZulu-Natal politics. He lands on Robben Island. When he lands on Robben Island, he gets educated by masters like Govan Beki, and others. So he gets both education, Western or Eastern, and also the African education is already in him. So he becomes more dynamic. That's why he becomes more charismatic. He can seem Shin Wam. He can seem Shin Wam anytime, without anybody, asking him for encore or anything. He just goes on because he's a true African. He exudes true Africanism, So he gets othered because of that. And the history of othering people goes back to even the first liberation movement ancestor, Ausumato, who was the first one to escape from Robben Island. Very first to ever escape, to beat the Boers to their game. Hands down, escape from Robben Island. But I don't think he has even been given his tolandre like you give all the others. I don't think he has it. They hardly don't want to talk about him, if my grammar is right. They hardly don't want to talk about him, And then you have Grotua, the woman who was Jan van Riebeck's interpreter, also a Khoisan. By the way, Ausumato was a Khoisan leader, and there was an uncle to Grotua. Grotua was Jan van Riebeck's interpreter, a linguist who spoke many languages. Today, they need to be rushing to give her a PhD because of the work. The first highly educated Khoisan woman. Instead of doing that, they would rather plagiarize they go and steal Charlotte Maxake's history and they make it theirs. They lie that she founded the African National Congress Women's League. And they say, well, because they jumped onto the bandwagon because she was called Mother of Africa. Very well deserving, of course. All that is in my book. But you don't jump to the descendant of Krotu and not recognize her. That's why they would rather do the story of Sarah Baartman more than anything else, because Sarah was abused by Europeans, so she becomes an easier target in terms of their normative narrative.
Let's continue about this one on the coming episode. You are watching the Kasi Talks. I'm joined by Paul Njabulo Vilakazi as we delve deep in his